Okay, so I guess I have another, what do you call these things? iPad? Yeah. And while the one is downloading, I use the other one. And I guess the camera lens is differently arranged in these two. Where do I want to be looking? Over there? I'm not sure. Shoot, I can't tell. Maybe over there. And sorry for all the. So anyway, now my candle's in the picture, but I thought, well, that's kind of cool, and it seems to fit pretty nicely with the whole thing. You could think of that burning flame in there as Atman or something. Atman, the real self, page 55. Really interesting story. The editor calls it a parable. I guess you could call it a parable. The the thing is, this teaching about Atman, you might recall, thus indeed did the god Prajapati speak. So it starts off with a god, and a very particular god. This is another term. It's Prajapati would be essentially equivalent to Brahma, remember the creator deity. So this is no low scale god. This is we'll say creator of our world at least, if not a great many other things, who is spouting Vedantic philosophy. And, other gods and the demons hear this teaching. So you see what's happening here partially is you have scholars of this growing philosophical tradition who are employing, we'll say, the mythology of many gods and demonic beings and so on. That's my dog, Coco. Come here. Get up on the chair. Hop up there. Be a good girl. So they're learning about the teaching of the Atman, and they're intrigued. They want to know more, right? So they send from Indra from the gods went forth to Prajapati. Indra, a great sky deity, god of the thunderbolts, and often known for getting drunk on soma. You might recall that from earlier. And then from among the demons, somebody named Virochana, they come into the presence of Prajapati with sacrificial fuel in hand, ready to learn Vedantic philosophy. And so you will recall that, like, how long did they, 30 some years, 32 years, several stints. I mean, part of what's going on here is it's showing you even gods want to learn this, and it's not easy for them either. And every time that Prajapati, he gives teaching, and it looks like the head god Indra and this head demon are satisfied. Indra always comes back and says, "Hold on a second." So Indra goes another 32 years, and this is in the middle of 57. We read, "He who moves around happy in a dream." And this is a very important passage. I've never read this story either. I'm just admitting to you. But I have read the teaching like that comes from this passage and maybe others like it. So Indra lived a student's life under Prajapati for another 32 years. Then Prajapati said to him, "The one who moves around happy in a dream, that is the self." So they're looking for this, unchanging, the Atman self. And he says, it's like you in a dream. That is the immortal, the fearless. That is Brahman. So, with a tranquil heart, Indra went away. But even before he got back to the gods, he says, oh, wait a second. Now, even though this body is blind, the self in the dream condition does not become blind. Even though this body is lame, and I'm aware of the limitations of this language, he does not become lame. Indeed, he does not suffer any defect through the defect of his body. He, as it were, becomes the experiencer of what is not agreeable. He, as it were, even weeps. I see no good in this. And the main point here is that when Indra comes back and says, is it really just like me when I'm dreaming of myself? And Prajapati says, no, wait, hold on. When one is sound asleep, composed, serene, and knows no dream, that is the self. Oh, great. Okay. That's the immortal, the fearless, that is Brahman. Holy smokes. Even then, before reaching the gods, Indra saw this danger. Hold on a second. This self in the deep sleep condition does not indeed now know himself in the form of I am he, nor does he know these things here. He, as it were, becomes one who has gone to annihilation. I see no good in this. So he goes back to Prajapati. 5 more years. Total of these years came to 101. Okay, long time for a god to study Vedantic philosophy. And what's the end here? Prajapati said to him, O Maghavan, the rewarder, Indra, mortal indeed is this body. It is taken over by death, but it is the basis of that deathless, bodiless self. Verily, the self, when embodied, is taken over by pleasure and pain. Wind is bodiless, cloud, lightning, thunder, these are bodiless. Now as these, having risen up from yonder space and having reached the highest light, appear each with its own form, even so this serene self, having risen up from this body and having reached the highest light, appears with its own form. That self is the supreme person. Well, I was going to say, I know that I've heard Atman talked about as similar to the state of being in dreamless sleep. Indra's a little worried about that. Well, you don't have any consciousness of that, right? I mean, what's the bliss in that? But of course, one could suspect that Indra, this deity, is still captivated by the illusion of his separate ego. I don't know that that's where this thing really ends. It seems to end with the idea that no worries, it isn't just like dreamless sleep. This serene self reaches the highest light and does have its own form. Now, the fact is, very often, Brahman is identified as formless. So again, we're not looking for hard and fast consistency here. But nonetheless, I think the big points here are that the gods, not just the demons, but the gods themselves, are pictured as being interested in learning this philosophy of Atman. It takes a long time. For goodness sakes, Indra devoted 101 years to learning Vedanta, and even then seemed to be not so sure about this final stage. But this is a really fascinating passage. Now, the next one, and I probably won't get, I try to keep these things to about 12 minutes or so. But I got to tell you, the next one is truly one of the most famous Upanishads, one I've read many times. And basically, you have a conversation between a young man and his father. The young man's name is Shvetakatu. And his father sends him off to learn Vedanta. He comes back home, and dad isn't terribly convinced that he's really learned. So they do these series of various experiments, salt in the water, taking a fig, breaking it down to the seed, and then down inside the seed to the empty space. All of this as pictures of Atman. And I think you all picked up on this. That is the self. That is the real. This is on page 61. That art thou. Or put it more simply, that is what you are. Shveta Ketu. That is what you are. You are that. Well, what is that? Atman, right? Again, you have the irony of a dad speaking to his son and teaching him these things. But the idea would be that this teaching is intended to lead the reader as well as the son in the story away from the experience of me as a separate self. Like, here I am and there's my dad. Just talked to my dad on the phone tonight, by the way, and that was good. That's beside the point, of course, but I figured you'd like a little moment away from all that. So essentially, this is a really well-known story that tries to go at different angles of showing that there's one reality. It is, I guess we'd call it spiritual in nature. It's certainly not material, and it's not manifold. It is singular. It is the self. Now those, maybe I can say it. Well, no, I'm going to come back and do a little bit more with karma and transfiguration. If you get this, and of course I think you were given the English transliteration of the Sanskrit term, because it is famous. It's one of the few I actually know. Tat, Tvam, ASI. That is you. That is what you are. And what's the that? Again, the salt in the water, the empty space in the fig seed. That which is not visible, not tangible, and yet is present everywhere and is somehow, and we'll emphasize for now, somehow manifest as objects, such as humans, doggies, pelicans. Wow, really got to get the pelican over on this one. Living and otherwise. All right, I'm going to come back for one more. I've never had quite this much fun with these videos. I mean, I'm really going all out now.